Welcome to the RugbyBits podcast, brought to you by bet.co.za. Thanks for listening wherever you listen to your podcast. Please subscribe, drop us a like or a 5-star rating so that we can share this podcast with the rugby world. And please also visit the bet.co.za website for any deals and markets that they are for the URC, for Premiership, and for the top 14. My name is Thala, and I'm with Shaun today, and we only with Shaun today, unfortunately, because of load shedding. Today, we are going to, first of all, we're going to obviously do first phase, then we're going to look at round 6 of the Rugby Championship matches, and then we're going to do quite a big review and sort of a state of affairs for especially the Springboks, but also looking at the other Rugby Championship competitors. And then we'll also look at the end at just what's going on in the other domestic competitions. Shaun, let's start off with first phase as we usually do. And today's first phase was actually relatively inspired by a tweet from RD Severe to LeBron James. LeBron James being obviously the famous basketball player. LeBron is maybe toying with the idea of playing another sport beside basketball and seeing if he can do that in the American college system. And RD Severe has definitely invited him to play some rugby. And I mean, seeing LeBron at blindside flank with RD Severe at 8 would be a terrifying prospect. So yeah, the first phase question this week is, which famous sports person would you want to see play and in which position? Shaun, what are your top picks?
Hi, my man. It's great to chat to you. And I love this first phase. So I have two, and they're a little off the mainstream sports. But one, I picked a ice hockey player, and I had a couple to pick from. But basically, any NHL defenseman, I reckon you could pick, and you could zap them at blindside flanker. I mean, you're going to have a big, hard, absolute beast just sitting there that's willing to crush people all day, which is really what you want. So that was the one. And the other was my open side flanker. I was looking at putting a professional climber or anyone that's in the climbing community. So like if you think about climbers and their hands and their arms and their shoulders, so they're obviously going to be a little bit more mobile. They're quite lean, but a climber, once he holds onto you, once he gets over that ball, he's not going to go anywhere. Like you will never, there's no way. He's like a limpet. Like he's going to stick to you like glue. So, and like, you know, when the guys burst through the tackles and you get a hand on the guy and you're dragging behind, that's basically like what's going to happen. The guy's going to just crush you with his hands. So those are the two that I thought of instinctively, but we had some incredible responses on Twitter.
Yeah, I was going to try to see if I can do a little bit of a 15 with some of the people that we've got. So I'll try to run through it position by position. But I think that Tommy Freeman was posted by the RugbyBits, Caldwell was posted by RugbyBits website, and just looking at him, and I did a small Google, like, yeah, Shaun, you're definitely right. I mean, him like is going to be like a little like what do you call those leech? It's going to be like a leech on a board when he gets on it, and it's going to be very difficult to move him. And of course, he's very sinewy. And then with the hockey players being blindside flanks, and obviously we know blindside flanks are usually the masters of the dark arts. I mean, that's perfect. Shaun, you're definitely the ice hockey expert between the two of us, but I'm sure there's definitely a ton of them that could supplement the US or the Canadian teams, rugby teams, if they switch sports.
Yeah, and the Russians, like the Scandinavian countries too. But I mean, I tell you, the one guy that I actually wanted to pick was Patrick Waugh, he was a goalkeeper for the Avs, and I couldn't quite factor putting a goalkeeper in, but he was big and uncompromising, and he was badass. I mean, he won the Stanley Cup with them as a player, but also he coached the Avs afterwards as well. But he's someone I definitely don't want to run into. The hockey goalkeepers take a bit of punishment, but he was a special kind of crazy as well, over and above that. So yeah, they're pretty mean.
Yeah. Speaking of mean, good segue. Al McFarlane has suggested Mike Tyson for hooker.
I thought that was the best. That was one of the best. There were two. It was the Mike Tyson and the Eric Cantona one. I was just like, that's brilliant. Yeah. But Mike Tyson at hooker, I mean, there's
Jeez.
shades of bullet there, eh? James Dalton, it's the copy paste.
I mean, yeah, like, can he win you a game? Yes. Can you get out with a red card? Yes. Like,
Can
all
he lose you?
all
Can he lose you a
possibilities.
game and be banned for 15 weeks? Absolutely.
There's definitely all sorts of possibilities if you put Iron Mike Tyson in the middle of your front row. But I mean, obviously, like in the 80s and 70s, before like rugby got a bit more regulated and sorted out, there's a lot of punching in between the front rows and the locks and all that sort of stuff. Imagine catching a hook there from Mike Tyson. Jeez.
Oof, man. You just got to hope. The nice thing about him being at hooker is you can see when he takes his bind off. You know, you just want to make sure that he's properly bound before anything happens. Because if he's not properly bound, you know you're going to be sleeping very soon.
I think then the prop that was added was from Mitch Rev Evans, obviously a friend of the pod, has appeared in our pod before. We actually probably need to invite him just to talk us through about what's happening with Dave Rennie. But he suggested Nick Kyrgios for prop, but I think he just wants him to get sorted out.
Yeah, that's interesting, eh? I mean,
I think that's
we'll
more
put him at prop, but yeah, that
probably more of a personal vendetta there.
yeah, and he's also got the mentality. I mean, like, it'll be great for him to be in. Just imagine the verbal abuse up front. It would be crazy.
I mean, imagine Kyrgios is at flank, let's say. He can speak, or actually at scrum off, and he is talking absolute rubbish. And then he can just poke Mike Tyson and just be like, hey, sort him out if anyone comes to him.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good 1-2 combo. The locks are quite interesting. Harry Jones suggested Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder to be second row partners. I don't know if they'll be fighting between them or if they can unite forces and fight other people. But that's obviously
brilliant.
titanic.
That's like love-hate. Like, they'll fight each other on the field, but the minute you pick a fight with either one of them, the other one's supporting, you know what I mean? That it's like a sibling rivalry, I almost see it. But I mean, that's basically like having 2 4s on your field. You don't have a 5. You've got 2 4s just absolutely slogging away for days.
Yeah, maybe the one boxer could be the 4, and then the 5 could be one of the NBA players. So quite a few NBA players suggested here. The legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar used to play for the LA Lakers in the 80s. You have LeBron James, obviously the person that we talked about earlier. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's was world champion, or the NBA champion, not world champion, last year. And yeah, he's also just tall and like just muscular and, you know, and very athletic. I mean, we've talked about this, I think, many times, and people have definitely like thought about this. But if you could have those NBA and NFL players play rugby, they would absolutely cause havoc because they just combine that speed and power and size. And yeah, I would not want to get in between those people and the try line.
Yeah, it would be crazy. But I mean, obviously, American sports are just very visible to so much of the world, but there are so many other sports in the world that like people just don't see, where there's absolute animals involved. You know, there's like there's brutal, like there's different types of like fighting or combat sports, and like different types of wrestling and all that sort of stuff. I have a look at some of that. I'm thinking, put that guy anywhere in jersey 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, and you're golden. You know.
Yeah. Speaking of brutal people, Brock Lesnar, the WWE and UFC fighter, put him on open side flank. You could have like just a supersized version of David Pocock there.
Or what about number 12?
Oof.
Imagine him running a straight line, and you don't know whether he's going to get the ball or send it wide, because your 10's the greatest footballer in the world, Eric Cantona. But I mean, Cantona, he could probably do it on his own too. But I think 12. When I looked at that Brock Lesnar, I was like, he would be good at 12. But he is an absolute. I don't know. Maybe blindside. He might be a bit short for blindside, but he's got the build for that.
Yeah, he just gives me the. I mean, I guess he did play American football. If I if I remember his history correctly, he was like more of a defensive player, obviously like in the maybe a linebacker or something like that. So probably a great tackler, but not the best ball skills. So maybe, yeah, you could play in the loose forwards possibly.
So flank or wing then?
Flank or wing, yeah. But yeah, just imagine just that sort of person, and you've got like a small little winger that's marking him. I think the only small wing at back against him is Darcy Graham.
Yeah, okay.
Then the scrum halves are a few basketball players again. Manu Ginobili at scrum half, the former Spurs player. He's just been inducted into the Hall of Fame. You've got Chris Paul. A very crafty basketball player, chatty like a substitute teacher, and there's an eye for where the ball should be, according to at Jacques Cellier. Fly half, we've talked about Eric Cantona quite a bit. Which fly half do you think he'd play like? The fly half that you've seen?
I think there'd be a lot of Dan Bigger about him. Like I think he's got some good vision, and then he would love to put some people in place. But then he totally has that Bowden Barrett, that kicking Bowden Barrett, like that number 10 Bowden Barrett that does those chips, and Dan Bigger does them too. You know those little chips ahead where he goes to collect it. He always collected it. It's actually probably more Dan Bigger, but maybe a little bit more of a running Dan Bigger. But that's what I think. Like I think he's just cool, calm, collected, play the corner, sort it out, kick the ball, distribute when needed, and makes good decisions. Maybe I'm doing him a disservice, but I think he'd be Dan.
I don't know. Maybe it's also because of his stature, but I get like a lot of like Henry Onabal type of vibes from him, and I guess Dan Bigger is in that class as well. But a bit bigger, can take on the ball himself, but obviously has the vision to put people away. I mean, Onabal arguably is probably near the top, or if not the best fly half the Springboks have had since the readmission. And the qualities that he has as an attacker are just great.
I read that he got his nickname just because he would cut through the defense. Those people who wrote that clearly didn't see him defend. That man was an absolute beast. I mean, he was like those fly halves or those fullbacks that are just like they bone, muscle, and sinew. Like there's no padding anywhere. Like he's just hard all over, and then he will just and he's built like a brick, but he doesn't look like it, and he hits like a freaking ton of bricks as well.
Yeah.
No, Lem's amazing, man. He's a machine, and I agree. I think he's probably one of the Springboks' greatest 10s. Like I would love to have seen more of him.
Yeah. The midfield is quite interesting. We've mentioned maybe having Brock Lesnar there. Another person known for power, Rian Lowe has suggested, is Serena Williams at 12.
So that was a great writer.
Obviously, yeah. So Rian Lowe said Serena has the power and stamina to hit any fly off on the crash for 80 minutes, the feet and the hands to go through the line untouched, and to also throw the long ball to 14. And I can definitely agree with that. And I think she's also, she's obviously very competitive. So you can just imagine her if she's like in a battle with another midfielder on the opposition side. She's going to be great.
Absolutely. She, like, all the things, the attributes that he mentioned about her, it's such a Ma Nonu sort of mold, like big and strong and can run over you, but also has the ability to, with nice hands, to play, and then got a bit of a kicking game, some good feet and everything. I think that's a great shot.
And then her center partner would be Muhammad Ali, according to Salman Todman. And of course, we all know about his footwork and his power and stamina. I think him as a 13, maybe not necessarily the creative force that Lucanio Am is, but you can just imagine him just if he gets a little bit of a gap, and it's obviously young Muhammad Ali, he can just gap through. He's able to dodge any tackler. You can see, his ability to dodge a punch. So he would be great as a center combo with Serena Williams.
Yeah, I must say, when that came through, I thought when Muhammad Ali, and I was thinking about it, like just the vision and also building up, like in boxing, you've got to expose the weakness and then strike. And I thought he would be great at 15, but 13, you also get that freedom too,
I think he would definitely I think also just that wit and ability. I mean, obviously Muhammad Ali is known for some of the best lines and comebacks in sports history with his chirping. And
Scrum off.
if you, ooh, that would be a lot. I think a ref would probably tell him to shut up. I think there'd be a bit of like a Reynal versus Nick White type of situation there. Our back three options are quite interesting. I mean, I think he's in pen in the team list, and that's Usain Bolt playing at wing, so he's got the one wing for sure. Other people have suggested Cristiano Ronaldo at wing. Of course, he's known for his pace. At fullback, I've seen a suggestion for this is funny, not funny, but I've seen a suggestion for Willie Leroux. But I think after his dance class,
I didn't even see
after his
that.
dance class taken by Juan Martin Gonzalez, I think he might have to go into another sport.
Just Thala, Paul Williams on Twitter came up with the most amazing burn ever. When he did that video, when he mentioned that video and about what Gonzalez did to Willie, he said he turned Willie Leroux into a lampshade. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I can literally see it. When I was watching the video, I could see exactly what he meant by it. It was crazy. But that Willie chirp is that's some proper trolling.
A much more serious one is from Dalton Barker, who suggested Lamar Jackson at fullback, the NFL quarterback for the Ravens. And he's got, I mean, he can't really throw forward in this sport, but he's got the ability to go long with the throw, and he can run it up himself. So he's got a lot of power. I think I'd probably even move him inside center. I think he'd be quite destructive there. Maybe move Serena to fullback, but he would cause a lot of like collisions there. One that I skipped over earlier was from Martin Prinsloo, who suggested that the well-known sportsman Matt Damon could play at flank. I think he'd do a pretty good job there.
But
you
can call him Francois.
Clearly our good. I think so.
I tell you, on that Ronaldo, I would rather have him at 15. I think
his jumping ability.
Yes, they're under the high ball, absolutely. But I just think the way he reads the game and looks at the game, I definitely have him there. And then I'm very surprised, but I didn't see it. I don't know if it was mentioned, but Tom Brady at 10 is a shout. And the GOAT tennis player,
Federer.
Fed. I wouldn't mind having Fed. Fed could have been a shot at 10 or 12, but most certainly at 12 if you want to have your playmaker at 10, 12. You could put Fed there.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen all the videos this weekend between Federer and Nadal, so that 12-13 combination could also work. I mean, Federer will be the silky hands,
Nadal at 13,
Smith.
and Serena at 15.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's badass. Think about that.
Yeah, Djokovic could be like a playmaker wing, like sort of like a James Lowe that comes in third phase, second phase, and gets the ball going too.
Yeah, see. But if you think about it, having those pro tennis players, putting them into a backline, because they're elite sportsmen. Like they are super fit, they're super dedicated. They're continued. Like there's a lot of problem solving that happens in tennis and what needs to be done, and you're doing it all on your own. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think and that's a nice sort of thought experiment with these sort of questions. Like you can see a lot of these skills that other people in other sports have, and you can just be like, yes, if you can use this in rugby or if you can use this in another sport, that'd be great. Like just the footballers and their vision for like obviously how they see through balls and space opening up. Like you'd want them in your fly half or midfield, and we've talked about the combat fighters and the climbers and wanting them in the forwards. Like just merging and amalgamating all these things would be so awesome. But I think with the tennis players and just how they have so much fitness and self-discipline, I'm sure it's a debate for another day. But if you would ask me which sports people would make a success of another sport, I think probably the tennis people, because they're just crazy enough to just dedicate themselves to a thing and become masters in it if they needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got another one, and I'm busy Googling now to find out who the Olympic champions are. But I tell you where we've missed a shot in the locking department is the Olympic beach volleyball.
Ooh.
So, I mean, if you think about that, maybe a number 4 jumper, because they'll jump in the front. Imagine that put Eben Etzebeth to shame with stealing all that opposition ball.
I think so. I mean, even have you watched handball in the Olympics?
Yes. Yassi.
I would love those people in the rugby.
There's some people that could probably make the integration pretty good, because from a physicality point of view, but also, I mean, it is considered a contact sport. But I think that would be not such a bad sort of switch, or I think it'll be an easier switch.
Yeah, and then that probably might be the way to get those like Eastern European countries more into rugby as well. Like they control that sport usually. But Shaun, I think let us transition into actual matters of the field. We had the last round of the Rugby Championship. Earlier in the day, we're going to discuss it a little bit later, but earlier in the day, we had New Zealand play Australia in the second Bledisloe Cup game. We were hoping that Australia could win or at least keep the score down. They did none of those things. And New Zealand won 40 points to 14. And then the South Africans were left with 39 to make up a 39 points differential. So they had to win by 39 points or more in order to win the Rugby Championship. Almost got there, in one sense, because they scored 38 points, but unfortunately Argentina scored 21. So it became quite clear, I think, during the middle of the second half that the Boks wouldn't get there, unfortunately, when Argentina had a ascendancy of the game. But I think let's just talk about the game in general. Shaun, the RugbyBits page did talk about what they would need to do in order to win. And we basically talked about that the South Africans, the Springboks don't need to do anything different and throw the ball around or anything like that. What they need to focus on is just grind them down. And with Argentina, they do tend to lose it in the last 20 minutes, and then they can sort of pile the points on, which kind of happened because South Africa was only 24-21 up in the last 10 minutes, and then they scored the final 2 tries. But Shaun, what was your general sense of the game? Do you think we got a little bit in between two things of trying to win, but also trying to chase the bonus point? Because even with the decisions about kicking to touch and not accumulating points, possibly bit us in the back at the end.
Absolutely. I think we put the cart before the horse. We had a lot of changes and disruptions. We also had that pressure of not only just having to win the game, but having to win the game by a certain margin, which in hindsight, I mean, we all were hoping it could happen on the day. But a tier 1 versus a tier 1 side to win by plus 39 points it's very unusual, especially if it's planned for. Sometimes you'll get a team on a bad day and you will be having a great game and then you will absolutely slam them. We've beaten the Argentinians that way, I think it was in 2013. We beat them by 70 odd points or whatever. So I think we got ahead of ourselves. I think we were chasing it the wrong way around, where we really were on top. As much as we were not executing well, we were so on top of that game in the first 20 minutes. It was crazy, but we kept making silly errors. We missed kicks to touch. We made very few kicks off 9 and 10, but specifically off 9, which I was so surprised about. I haven't had a chance to rewatch, but I don't recall more than 3 kicks from Jaden Hendrickse from what I remember, but I could be very wrong. But a couple of them were, the ones that he did kick were not accurate. Frans Steyn wasn't kicking accurately. And I think we fizzled out. We had all the signs were there. We were dominating. We were all over them. The Argentinians got warned. They got yellow cards. There were penalty tries. We had everything there. We just put the recipe together wrong. I really feel. And I think taking the points, I think kicking to the corner and just working them and just going, we should have been boring for 50 minutes, like so much so that everyone would have bitched and moaned about it, but we would have had a 20-odd point lead. and then we start changing it up, and then we get the bonus point, then we chase the PD. And I think we were chasing the PD and bonus point at the same time without really setting a foundation.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate summation of what happened in the game. Let's maybe start with, I think, what went well, and I think the positives from the game are probably numbers 1 to 8, the single digits of the team. I think you can't really ask for much more of a performance from the Springbok forwards in that game. As you said, we controlled the rolling maul as far as possible. We controlled the scrums, especially in the first half. We'll talk about the second half because the Argentinians, bit back, and they bit back hard, especially in the rolling maul. But the forwards did their job in terms of, winning set piece, forcing penalties in the scrum, getting people yellow carded in the rolling maul, and they put all the pressure on. And I think the forwards can definitely pat themselves on the back. And Jasper Wiese's collected, I think, his second or third man of the match of the season as well.
He's really been great, and I find it quite surprising that there are so many people on social media still talking about talking about him like he's not going to be around for another 4 or 5 years. It's quite odd. I find it odd.
Shaun,
yes.
Just very quickly, do you think people think Jasper Wiese is 30? Because I genuinely think that's the issue. Because
maybe it's
I think they don't. Yeah, it's the moustache. Because I don't think they consider him in the same age group as Evan Roos. And I've also been a victim of this. And I was like, okay, Jasper Wiese, I mean, I've heard of his name for a while, so he must be close to 30. So yeah, a transition period for 1 or 2 years after Dwayne. And then you're like, oh, he's actually only like 4 or whatever years older
26.
than Roos.
He's 26.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, he's 26. He's playing the best rugby of his life. He did it in the Premiership as well. He was cooking in the Premiership. And now he's cooking at test level. For a guy who is relatively inexperienced at test level, his growth has been remarkable. And South Africans are always after the next best thing. And they always believe there's someone else on the line waiting. And even if there's someone there, they're happy to try and put someone else in, but then they're also very happy to discard you. Now, we find that the fans are happy to discard players when they play badly, but I find it so odd that people are trying to get rid of Wiese when he's playing so well. I really do find it bizarre. But having said that, I love that we have options. So we have the ability to tinker with a game plan, move stuff around. But on the topic of Evan Roos, I think that Evan Roos has got to have another great URC season, like off the charts great, because it's quite clear that it's Dwayne Vermeulen who's on his way out-ish, and I say that just purely because he's going to retire soon. Wiese is most certainly the front runner for the number 8 jumper or the number 8 jumper. And then Ulrich Loh played at 8. And Ulrich Loh fits in what we in South African rugby require at our 8, who can cover 4 and maybe lock. So I'll be interested to see what they do. Maybe Roos will come in and cover off the bench. And I don't think Roos is terrible, and I don't think he's not a Springbok. I just don't think that he's better than the other 2 guys right now,
Yeah, and I mean, the frustrating thing, and I think Jacques Mina over Mastrola's eyes as well, and Rassie Erasmus, because they know every time Roos has a fantastic game like he did on Saturday with Connacht, and obviously we saw what he did to poor Mac Hansen. Jeez, Guys are family. I'm sure Rassie Erasmus turns off his Twitter notifications because he's probably going to receive 50 tweets being like, why isn't he in the squad and all that sort of stuff. But I think anyone that's watched Evan Roos against the tougher opposition, and never mind the test match that he played for the Boks, but just against Leinster, and even in the URC final to an extent, there's still some stuff that he needs to just get better at before he becomes a test match animal, and that's okay. He's 22. That's the normal part of the process of growth. Then he'll get better at these things. But yeah, I think there's just a rush to get him into the team. But what I also don't understand is apart from, yes, maybe Dwayne Vermeulen, he's not in form right now, sure, but there's not really a place for him. I can't say with full conviction that Roos or Lowe, for that matter, are better than Kolisi, Peter Steff, Jasper Wiese, and Kwagga Smith.
Yeah.
So then there's maybe one place left if Dwayne, let's say Dwayne is let's say we don't count Dwayne. There's maybe two places for a loose forward. One of them will probably go to someone like Ulrich Lowe or Reinhard Alstad because they can also switch to lock if needed. And then the other will go to probably someone that can cover 6 and 7 or 6 and 8, ideally. Maybe someone like John Fourie, obviously he's had a decent few games. Maybe someone like Evan, but the point, is that Evan Roos also only covers one position at the moment, so it also becomes difficult for him. So yeah, I he'll probably get, and we'll have a lot of time to talk about this later with the SAA games coming up, but he'll definitely get selected for the SAA games, and he'll impress there, I'm sure. But again, if he has a great Champions Cup, and the Stormers hopefully make a run to the quarters or the semis, and he plays, a Leinster or a Toulouse or a Saracens and makes big moves there, then we can definitely start talking about it, because I think, and it sounds like that's where the Springbok coaches are. You need to do it in the big games in order for you to stake your claim for a place in the squad.
You see, the thing is, I actually tweeted off RugbyBits instead of my own account, but I was talking about, I try and put the slightly controversial things off my own personal Twitter, and you know what I mean? Because obviously there's 4 of us at RugbyBits. I don't want to be blurting out saying something, and then you guys are looking at this going, "Hang, this is not right," But what I did say was I thought Evan Roos needs to work on so his line-out ability and his mauling presence. I think is probably the place where he needs to work more. Not saying that he doesn't have the goods. I don't think he doesn't have the goods, and I absolutely think he's going on tour in November. I have no doubt in my mind that he's going on tour in November. He has to go. He absolutely simply has to go, because in order for him to grow personally, he must go on tour, and he will play 3 games there, I reckon. In whether it's SAA, there's only 2 SAA games, but I reckon he'll be involved in 3, maybe 4 games. And he's 22 years old, as we've mentioned. The guy's got it, but you are bang on. He covers only 8 at the moment. I wouldn't pick him. I wouldn't play him on the side of the scrum for any Springbok test match at the moment. I don't think that's where he is, and I would much prefer that he stayed focused on 8, fixing his 8 role for what the Springboks need. He very likely could just be and as much to so much to the players' disappointment and many fans, he might just be the Skulk Brits of his era, because Skulk Brits was world class, but he didn't fit into what we needed as a hooker in the Springboks. I thought that we could have made up for it, and that's where this conversation goes now. So, the guy's got it, and yes, he's gonna have a good season. But the same as the Stormers are almost like the Harlequins, where the Harlequins win the Premiership, and so few of their players make the English setup because it's not Test match rugby that they're playing. Are the Stormers players, a lot of them, fitting into the same category, specifically Ulrich Lowe and their Lucies and a couple of other players? I don't know.
Bach.
Yeah, I'm just floating that, because they're performing well in those structures, but put them in somewhere else, they might need to completely change their mindset, and it might not be towards their strengths. Yeah. Just adding options, but I by no means I'm saying that that Evan Roos is shit. I think he's a good player. Yeah. I think he's great. I think he's big and strong, and I think he's going to most certainly win himself a hell of a lot of Springbok caps. It's just not now. Yeah. I mean, he's 22. Just chill.
Yeah. We can wait. I mean, we don't all need to be Springboks by the time we are 21. But I think let's get back to the game. I think we did. Well, as I mentioned, we discussed the forwards and their performance in the first half. But Shaun, I think we also saw in the second half that things weren't really going well with our rolling more defense. And, we started slipping our binds in the scrums and conceding some penalties there. And I think that's been a bit of a theme in the Rugby Championship, that there's been times our set piece hasn't looked as almost perfect or as strong as it usually does. Shaun, do you think we're having a little bit of a drop in our standards there?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that seem a bit wobbly. And the set piece, so the scrum, the line out, and the maul are three separate spaces that are slightly wobbly, and the other is I find our defense is a little bit shaky sometimes. But yes, we've been flirting with, we've been working with different players and different front rows and trying to figure things out, and that's coincided with having someone like Trevor Nyakane lose a bit of form, which we never thought would happen. Like the truth is when he was getting pushed around, we didn't see that happening. He's a much better player than that. So that, there's a few things that have been iffy. The lineouts have not been great, and Marks and Mbanambe have every now and then wandered a little bit off course. But we had it with Dweba as well. So we haven't really had that our bread and butter. And I thought on Saturday we were doing well in the beginning, in the first half especially, and I really wanted us to carry through. That discipline, that focus of just cleaning them off just wasn't quite happening. But the thing is our backs weren't working either. So it's almost like the Argentinians knew that the only thing that we were going to do was work off our forwards and our set piece, because the only backs that did anything, and I think they really deserve a shout along with the forwards, were our 12 and 13, because everywhere else was wobbly. Those are the only two that could really put their hands up and say that they did well and try to create some front foot ball for us. But our forwards did well and then fizzled out.
Yeah, and I think they got back into in the last 10 minutes, but there was definitely a part of the game, and that's probably where we lost any chance of getting the 39 points, is when Argentinians were starting to get some ascendancy in the rolling mauls and winning the collisions there. So let's move to a big talking point from Saturday's game, which was the performance of Frans Steyn. Shame. He did not have the best day on the park, and up to the Durban crowd cheering like sarcastically when he kicked a ball out for touch for the penalties. And he's just not really accurate, and obviously he's not a first choice fly by any means, but I think most would be a little bit disappointed that he couldn't at least do a job and hold things over for the weekend. And Shaun, I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but it just, we saw that it really felt like a 12 that is trying to play 10 in all aspects, and it really was a bit more untidy than what we probably expect from someone with his experience.
Yeah. So I had to think about it, and in hindsight, maybe we should have started Faf, because Faf would have been able to, he's just a lot more experienced at 9, so maybe he could have helped France. None of us ever thought that Frans Steyn would need some help on the inside or outside. He got it on the outside from Damien Delendi, but on the inside, maybe that is somewhere where we could have maybe made a change, because I don't think we were venturing. I think Frans Steyn at 12 was either him or Willie, and they were both really like were going to be a gamble. So I just found it so odd that France was missing those kicks to touch. The simple things, like he kicked well to poles. I think he kicked all of his kicks. I just think that that's the part. Like, we didn't kick to settle. If we kicked to settle things down, he probably would have got into the game. But almost looked like, it's so weird saying this, but it almost looked like he got rattled early and then was gone. He really looked a little bit flustered. I think we try to do a lot more work of Damien at 12 to try and sort some go forward ball. Twice there were passes that went very deep off Damien to go back to France that both missed their target, sadly. But that, to me, showed that the Springboks were probably going to send the ball wide. Or France could have just walloped a kick, but very likely send the ball wide and then give the wingers some ball, because we completely changed our game plan. And those 2 passes alone, if they had stuck or been a little bit more accurate, I would love to have seen the outcome of that and how that changed our game. I almost feel that those two things were a big thing that could have assisted us, and the missed kicks to touch. I find it so weird that he's trying to eke off an extra 5 meters when he's already got an absolute bazooka boot. And, if he miskicks it, it still goes further than anyone else. But yeah, I don't think France is done and needs to be dropped. I think he's still got a place in the squad, but I think his place in the squad is exactly the same as what it had been before. I think it's going to be more that player 23, the guy that helps in the squad, that sorts out a few things. But I don't think we'll see him starting at 10 if we have this problem again in the future. Or maybe he will, because the Springbok coaches have shown often that they've given guys an extra chance and sorted stuff out, like work on this, sort this out, let's figure this out. It's new for you. You've got a feel for it. We can do it again with you. What happens if he comes on in the quarterfinal in an emergency at 10 and then strings it together?
We've lost that game.
No, don't you very dare. France is good enough to pull it together if need be. And we'll simple things down,
So I think that's the issue with France in that respect, that I think we've obviously watched this guy for 16 years, so we know his game relatively well. So France can obviously be, a person that, cleans things up, is very accurate, obviously kicks the ball, a country mile. But there is an aspect of him, because, he's such a talented player. And I don't know if it's just sometimes it's maybe a lapse of concentration, or he's just trying to get the full maximum out of certain things. But, he would try things and you just be like, you know what, you could have just at least played a little bit safe. And I think especially when you're almost like a substitute, your substitute teacher in a sense at fly half, all he needed to do on Saturday was, like you said, Shaun, didn't need to go for the 60-meter penalty kick. Just kick it out 30 meters. Let's just build momentum. All he needed to do is not to do the big pass. And I think that was sometimes why he missed, like Damien or whoever, just trying to run a line. Just do something more simple and just let's build momentum like that. Like that's how, the Boks can, especially in a game like that where the forwards were rumbling, that's how the Boks can just capitalize that momentum. He doesn't have to do too much. Like if he was playing France or something like that, maybe we'd expect a lot more from our 10. But in a game like that, all he needed to do was just to almost be like a background player, more so than like at the forefront and carrying the ball and getting into contact and, trying to get these 60-meter kicks. He didn't need to do all of that. He just needed to, when he needs to kick the ball 30, 40 meters, when he needs to just get the ball off to Damien for a crash ball, or get the ball out wide when he needs to. He didn't need to do all of the other stuff. And unfortunately, that just didn't really happen for him. I like your point about maybe this would have been a better game for Faf de Klerk. And I mean, we can talk about it when we review the Boks. I think there's some aspects about Faf's game I'm worried about with his form.
But if we weren't kicking it from 9, then playing Faf wouldn't have mattered.
It was less of a risk, yeah.
Yes. So, looking at those tactics, Jaden, for me, he didn't kick. And if it was going down to passing and experience and supporting France staying more, then I would have been a little bit more supportive of starting Faf. If we were going to kick like I'd hoped we were going to be doing from 9, Jaden starts for me, no shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, well, it's a bit weird that we didn't really use that, because that's how we capitalized and put pressure on the Argentinians. But I mean, we were always in their half, especially in the first half, because we were getting a penalty a minute. So I guess we didn't really need to do a big do miracles with the kicking game. But yeah, I think we need to just also divorce ourselves from the Frankenstein at 10 option. Like it has to be a 5th, 6th option. Like half the team has been abducted by aliens and France is the only one remaining, then that's fine. But
let's
if
be
he's
realistic. Let's be realistic here. I know that we spoke about it on the group about this World Cup to World Cup cycle, which I hate. However, because of what we've built up and everything, I've been finding myself talking about World Cups more. But there comes a point in the World Cup, I don't know when, but where you are not allowed to add players to your squad. So there is a point, it might be after the group stages or something, where if there's an injury, you have to use within your squad. So if we're going to be honest about this, there is a chance, no matter how well we prepare for this, that we could end up needing a third choice fly half in the knockout stages of a game. So then we need to start asking the questions about what questions have been answered and what questions do we have and how do we work this out. So is Huijsen going to take Francois Stein's role? Because I think it's the Francois Stein role in the squad that is the 10 role. So is it France? Because or we're going to have two. We're going to have two first choice fly halves. Two fly halves, and then we're going to have Damien Willemse, and then France Stein. So then we've got 4 and Willie. Maybe we're looking at that. But are we going to take is Damien Willemse going to take the second choice fly half and then we have to have another 15? Is that going to be Johan Huijsen? Is it going to be Apelele Fassi? In which case, Frans Steyn becomes our third choice 10 again. So there's quite a lot of dynamics that we've got to look at. And I think November tour is going to help us with that or answer questions for the book coaches. And then next year we'll see what the plan is. But I mean, touch wood, we've gone through a little bit of a mini emergency at the moment. Next year, this time, 11 months' time, we hopefully will be in a much better position.
Yeah, I think you've basically said what I was just about to say is that, no. It was actually, you probably said it better than I did, is that number one, I think Steyn should be, like, at worst, like the fourth choice, like, we have 2 established fly halves, be it Pollard and then, fly half X, we've obviously discussed the Alton situation. Damien is like our third choice, he can come in, even if he can even be like the second choice in inverted commas, but we still have a recognized fly half in the squad that can come in if needed. And then this is the where the second part comes in. I think in terms of Francois Steyn's place in the squad, this is where Jan Huijsen comes in. And that's probably the biggest threat to Steyn going to the Rugby World Cup at the moment. And that's if Huijsen is able to obviously prove his fitness, number one, and number two, put in the performances to try and unseat him, because he would obviously be the person that can cover all of these positions. Is obviously a much more useful option at 10. And, we obviously are aware of his talent. It's just obviously he's not been in the squad that much and, doesn't have the experience that Francois Steyn has. And, I'm definitely a person that believes in vibes, and it seems like Francois Steyn brings good vibes. So there's definitely also an aspect of that too. So, but I think
my question
summed it
to
up
you,
quite well. Yeah.
My question to you is, right now, both are fit, both are in form, both are available and fit into the Springbok squad environment. Who are you taking between Frans Steyn and Johan Huijsen?
Listen, I'm probably taking Huijsen. Just on the fact that
I'd take Frans Steyn.
I think it's close enough. Like I don't mind.
There's no wrong answer.
I don't think there's a wrong answer in that. Because look, Steyn is literally 10 months removed from basically winning us the game against Wales and winning us the game against New Zealand last year with his kicking from fullback. So the ability is there. It's just that he hasn't really played that much rugby the last 6 months because of the injuries. So he's only played off the bench, I think, for half the Rugby Championship. Now he started at 10. Obviously, he's not even a recognized 10. So this almost it's not a setup because of injuries and stuff, but like this wasn't the best circumstances to measure him in. But on the other hand, I don't think there's things that I don't want him to work on his 10 stuff. You know what I mean? Like I want him to still improve not improve, but like just to work on his game as a 12, because I think he'd be a decent second choice 12. He'll probably be like if he's picked for the squad, he'd probably be like the captain of the Springbok B team that plays in the Romania games and all that sort of stuff. So I want him as a 12. He can obviously cover 15 if we need him to. He can do a job of sorts at 13. He needs to only come in at 10 if it's like the last 10 minutes of a game, and maybe we want to give Pollard a few minutes off. Or like, a Meteor's gone through like the 3 fly-off options for whatever reason. But like, we can't be winning a Rugby World Cup if Francois Steyn is in the top 3 options. That's, I think, the main gist of it. And I think we saw he can improve, but I think we saw why in the Argentina game, that there's just certain aspects of his game that were the reason why we saw Steyn as a much better fullback and center in the like peak of his career.
I'm more asking for that player 23 role, not specific, not a fly-off specific, because France could possibly, if you're going to, you could probably include both Huijsen and Steyn, but that would come at the expense of Esterhuizen, I would imagine.
Probably,
because you've got France covering 12, Willemse covering 12, Lukhanyo covering 12. You've got Kriel, Delendi, Huijsen, and Steyn covering 13. So our midfield options are fine. And then you've got more options at 10 and at 15. But I'm scared that we're having too many like multiple position players. That's always been a worry for me. But I don't think we'll change the balance too much of that. I think. But it's interesting. I would actually still stick with Steyn. Funny enough, if it was between Huijsen and Steyn, it really is a tough one. But I'd probably stick with Steyn just because of the time he spent in the squad over the last 4 or 5 years.
Good argument.
But if it was between the two and they went with Huijsen, I'd be like, okay, cool, that's your call. There's no skin off my teeth. Like there's factors inside the squad and decisions by the coaches that we obviously not privy to. So I'd understand it, but I think it's a close one, eh? Now that we discussed it like that.
And look, I think there's probably only space for one of those guys. And I did a thread over the weekend going through like the tier 1 nations except for Italy. Apologies to Italy. And just going through what their World Cup squads look like. And in my calculation, there's probably only space for 2 of Francois Steyn, Johan Huijsen, and then Andre Esterhuizen, because Andre Esterhuizen is limited because the incumbent 12 is not really going to move anytime soon, that being Dukes. So, and we have Willems as an option there. So I guess we'll have to see now with the games coming up. Steyn, I think, is going to play for the Cheetahs now in the next few, not this weekend, but the weekend after that in the Toyota Challenge.
He's only allowed to play for the Cheetahs if he's drinking beers afterwards with fans like he did last year in the Currie Cup. That's what we're here for. Let's be honest.
Maybe Cooks and Francois Steyn should do an advert together.
Oh man. but now Cooks, I mean, I was hoping he was going to be on. He needs to tell us about this. He's now committed to the Bulls. So, I mean, imagine the two of them having beers, a bull and a cheetah, beers for the game. That should be good. Listen, I'm going to mention it again because I know firstly Jared would really want me to, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot and I've seen it happen a lot and the discussion at the Quins. But Andre Esterhuizen is not a slouch at 10, eh?
Yeah.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, he's left-footed and he has a booming boot as well. He's a lefty, right?
Yeah. He is left, yes.
Their
Just
options,
imagining him kicking,
their options, and I think that's why he's still in the mix. I think regardless of what happens with Willemse, I think Esterhuizen's providing us with extra options there. A little left-right combo kicking option. You could shift into 10 for a little bit of distribution. He can kick for poles. If you don't have Francie, he can kick a country mile as well. So I think he might be a dark horse. But yes, we're having a bit of a blockage, a funnel blockage with the amount of talent we've got at 10 and 12 covering and stuff at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, if only like one of Esterhuizen or France was like raised as a 10 almost, then we'd probably be solving two problems. We would not have, or even Damien Willemse to an extent, we'd not have like this big backlog that we have at 12, and then at 10, we're not like trying to shift people into 10 that haven't really played 10.
So you're trying to subliminally get Goosen in. I see what you're doing. So you're just casually just dropping that in there because you need the goose. The goose at 10.
Yeah. Look, if I'm honest, like I don't see Goosen as like a international fly half. I don't think he solves all the problems that we have. I guess he could be a second choice, a third choice, but he hasn't really played that much 10. I mean, you would know better than I do, but he didn't play that much 10 at all for Montpellier. And last season for the Bulls was the only season where he played 10 pretty much week in, week out.
And he got injured.
He's come back to the Bulls and then he got injured. Now he's come back to the Bulls team. Chris Smith he's been having a good year or so. Mornay Steyn is still there, and obviously he's still got ice in his veins. And breaking hearts still for the last 20 years almost. So Goosen is probably only going to play 15. And now Kurtley Arendse is coming back. So where's Goosen going to play now? He's going to play 23. Like, it's not a perfect situation for the Goose as well. So I would like to see what happens in the next few URC games, because Arendse and Moody, I guess you could probably maybe move Moody to 11 or Arendse to 11 and then have Arendse, Moody, Goosen back three. You've got Straviana Jacobs, you've got the Creels as well as options in the back three.
For me, Jacobs falls away because you then have Hendricks, Mapu, Similani. Those guys are now jamming 10, 12, and 13. So I would almost always want to have Cornell Hendricks on the field. So does he play 12 and Mapu 13? Because I rate Mapu. I really do. I think he offers so much to that side just purely from his organizational ability. He's got a calm head on him and he does have a little bit of flash. So Similani probably goes onto the bench, but then he can cover wing and fullback and midfield. Maybe that's why Jake wanted to look at him at 15 a couple of weeks ago, just to see maybe he's going to be covering. But when the Springboks come back to the Bulls, there are problems. There's some Oaks sitting, some Oaks missing the flight on a tour because he just really can't make the side. Because Moody and Arendse start. There's no ways they don't.
And you didn't buy Wandisile Similani to sit on the bench, so he probably should at least be in the 23. And you've got Harold Forster, who played really well. You've got, so there's a lot of issues there. But I mean, Goosen, the point being that Goosen doesn't even have that much time to probably play 10 in the next few months. So is he really that much of a legit option? So he's also probably someone that is probably more a third choice than he would be a second choice. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I just want to remind everyone, don't forget, Jake White has experience with European rugby, and by European, I mean the Champions Cup. He has experience with dealing with bigger squads, what is required from the domestic and the European point of view. So we're saying this now, but he's got the plan where he's probably going to be running two squads alongside each other for whatever requirements are needed. He'll probably, like when the guys come back from a Champions Cup game, he'll probably be starting a vastly different side than you'll see the week after. I'm not sure the exact fixtures, like who they've got on either side of the European fixtures, but it's just, I think we'll probably see that them and the Sharks have probably got the best depth required to be successful in domestic and European competitions. We'll just have to see how they work it out. Sorry.
Yeah. But my point being, and this probably can transition into our discussion about, the review of the Springboks and the lessons learned. I think my lesson learned is if the Alton Yankee situation doesn't sort itself out, and obviously I'll leave that to Alton and the Springbok management, we need a legitimate second choice 10 option that plays 10 every week. Like, at the very least to be in the squad, but I think he should probably be the person that is the second choice if Andre Pollard is not able to play. Like, the Willems, Frankenstein, Johan Goosen, etc., options are stopgap and should only be seen as stopgap. And that's probably, I hope that's the big lesson that Jacques Nienaber has taken from this tournament. So yeah, let's transition into that point. What do you think the big lesson is for the Springboks from this Rugby Championship?
The big lesson is we really have to tighten up our basics. So we have to work very hard with our tight five at scrum time, and our first and second choice tight five. Like, we really got to put a lot of work there. We have to put a lot of work in at lineouts, and we need to tighten up our maul. So for me, the set piece is vital. The other thing, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and I find it quite disturbing in that our head coach is the mastermind behind one of the newest and greatest defensive setups being used, but is that we are quite leaky on defense in periods. Like, the discipline is not there. And so those are the things I want to work on. So they're actually relatively easy things to work on in that they're not too out there. It's just about getting the boys together, tightening everyone up, like just lay down the law, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, though, there is like a 30% aspect to it that obviously we're the world champions and all that sort of stuff. And we are known for, having probably the best forward pack in the world. Do you think a part of it is also just that obviously every forward coach and scrum coach and line-out coach that faces the Springboks has a weeks or year or almost a year to work out how they're going to stop it. So they've got Petrus du Plessis or whoever just working on how to work the scrum, how to show a picture to the referee. They've got, the forward coach for the Argentinians working on how to stop the rolling maul. And I'm sure we'll probably face the same things against Ireland and France in the end of your tour. So do you think it's also just an element of, because we're the best, people are preparing for us and this is their big test match? Like a Jason Ryan or someone like that will be excited trying to work out ways in order to stop our rolling maul, more so than he would be facing, England or the All Blacks or France or whatever. So do you think that's a part of the reason why our forward stuff hasn't looked too great sometimes?
Yes, I 100%, and I'm going to add to that. But yes, we are the benchmark, and we are the ones to beat, because that's who you measure yourself up against. I don't care what, you measure yourself about beating the Springbok first and second choice packs, and you measure yourself up about contesting in the lineout and winning all your lineouts against the Springboks, who have defensively a great lineout. And then same with the mauls, both sides of the ball, whether you're defending or attacking. So 100%. The other thing is I also do believe that we are not just casually sitting back, going by, hoping that our the blueprint from 2018 and 2019 is going to then go and win us the 2023 World Cup. We are definitely working on stuff, changing things up. Something will be revealed, and most coaches and teams will reveal their bits of their hand more in 2023, in the year of the World Cup. But they will unleash it in the World Cup, because you want to keep something up your sleeve so you can present it to teams that have never seen it before, that get the defensive coaches and the scrum coaches scurrying for footage to try and figure out what the hell's going on. And I'll just take everyone back to the move.
Yes.
The move.
And I think that is, hopefully that there is maybe things that obviously counters to those counters that the Springboks will be working on, because we know we know what the strengths are with the Springboks, and other teams will be trying to show a picture, especially in the scrums. We'll be trying to show a picture to the ref to go, look, someone's slipping their bind, or someone's not, is not doing what they're supposed to do in the scrum, and then you milk a penalty. I mean, remember last year when we played England, and the smile Carl Sinclair had when he won that penalty against, I think it was Oxenchair. Like, that smile comes from, I've been working on this for the whole week, and Matthew Proudfoot has probably told me, do this and do that, and it worked a charm.
Yep, 100%. And we've got, if you think about it, 4 counting South Africa, 3 South African forwards coaches coaching Test match rugby at the moment. So we've got Petrus in Australia. We've got Peter de Villiers in
Proudfoot.
Scotland.
Oh,
and we've
yes.
got Proudfoot
Yeah.
in England, and Don for South Africa.
Yeah, so it's all the P's that are trying to find ways to stop the Springboks. So we set out this Springbok fan survey after the 2022 Rugby Championship to see what the fans' feelings are about how the Springboks are going. So I think let's maybe go through it quickly just to get some quick fire discussion about and review the Rugby Championship in that way. So the first question was, what was the best performance by the Springboks in the Rugby Championship? Shaun, what was it for you?
I thought our performance in Argentina was incredible. I really did. I saw when I voted that I was horribly outnumbered because the All Black game in Mbombela was up there. I just thought that with us traveling, with the up and down against Australia, I really enjoyed the Argentinian Test match. I thought we were in control. And I thought it boded well for us to finish the tournament a little bit better than we did.
Yeah, I think you can also make a decent argument for the Australia game, especially because, the Springboks lost the week before and, it was under some scrupulous circumstances and all that sort of stuff. And they stood up to that game. And, I think we've talked about this, that the Springboks sometimes need a loss in order to wake up. But they woke up really well and, keeping the Australians scoreless or at least tryless until like the 75th minute is also a big feat because that's a great Australian attack. So they played really well to basically zero them out for most of the game. But as you've indicated, most of the fans voted for that 26-10 win over the All Blacks, which, I think is probably the right answer because the Springboks just everything went well that game. They, the set piece was going well. They were, bashing it up really well. The rolling ball was going well. The kicking game was perfect, and we know that try that Curtly Arendse scored from the kicks as well. Like I've never seen a New Zealand team look so lost before, and that I think is probably the defense. Of course, I don't think I mentioned it was just relentless the whole time, and it just made a New Zealand team look very lost, which we were writing eulogies for Ian Foster and the All Blacks, and they were the champions at the end.
We were whitewashing the Rugby Championship. We were streets ahead to win the World Cup next year. Yeah.
So clearly that was a good performance against a team that was actually not too bad. Let's keep it to now the player of the Rugby Championship. I excluded Malcolm Marx in that question because I think that'll be where most votes go. So you can choose whoever because we had a bit of a debate or a little bit, you were scaling me out for not including a certain player in the options.
Well, what were the options? Just so all the listeners can get, your options were excluding Marx.
The options were excluding Marx was Jasper Wiese, Damien Willemse, Frans Malherbe. I just want to defend myself here. Best tight end in the world, doesn't get the love that he deserves. Is a sneaky option for World Player of the Year as well.
If you imagine,
I think he should get more love.
Front row.
A prop finally, yeah.
Jeez.
So I just want props to get love.
Yeah.
And then I said other, and please comment.
Yeah, so I thought Jaden Hendrickson deserved a shout, and but for me, Jasper Wiese was by far even more so than Malcolm Marx. I think Jasper Wiese was probably the guy for us this year, this tournament. But why I did have a go at you yesterday was not having Siya Kolisi in there. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you're only allowed to add 4 options, and your 4th option was other, and we excluded Marx, so you did well to get 4 in there anyway. But I thought Siya Kolisi was great. I thought there's so many guys you can mention. Jesse Creel deserves a shout, and because even though he won't because he only started 2 games, but he was to take over that role and be in that position and everything. Jaden Hendrikse deserves a shout too. Same with Damian Willemse. The best part about Damian is if he didn't get injured, he'd probably win that because I think he was so influential. Same with Lukhanyo So yeah, there's almost like no wrong answer here. We've got a lot to get through, so I'll stop jabbering on.
Yeah, other people mentioned Eben Etzebeth, Siakalisi, like you mentioned. Lodiaga got a few shots as well. But yeah, Jaden Hendrikse. So I think there were Mostert. I think that's a good sneaky one as well, especially his games at 7.
Yeah, there's a player that flew under the radar but got through a boatload of work.
Let's talk about the most encouraging part of the Springboks during the Rugby Championship. So you can talk about your own thing. The options on the thing were, what is the most encouraging part of the Springboks during the Rugby Championship? The first one was physicality. The second was finding new players. The third was developing the attack. And the fourth was historic wins against New Zealand, Australia. Tied at the moment is finding new players and developing the attack, which is quite interesting. Shaun, what's your most encouraging part of the Rugby Championship for the Boks?
The most encouraging was actually developing more attack. And I'm a firm believer, and I speak about it a lot, so I'm sorry for boring all the usual listeners, but the puzzle pieces that we're working on and putting them together. And unfortunately, sometimes, introducing one puzzle piece means we lose focus on another part, but I believe it'll all come together. But the attack, we really attacked well. It wasn't just Damian Willemse. It wasn't just a player. It was a combination of so much where we were bringing Leroux in more. Leroux felt comfortable with the 10, 15 options. We were looking at a whole bunch of new and different attacks. So I like that. That for me was probably the most encouraging part, followed very, very closely by wins over New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah, I think that's definitely I can definitely agree with that. And I think just the other one that was top, which is finding new players, I think, and you'll see with the negatives, the most concerning thing, I think with the most concerning thing, I almost did it deliberately of just reversing all of these options or a lot of these options, because I think there's two dominating perceptions with the Boks that, we have developed new players, we are developing our attack, things aren't coming right yet, versus look at this attack, it's still, from the Stone Age, we haven't developed players, we're playing all these old people, and I think there's truth in both, and it probably leans more to the positive than it does to the negative. But we have actually unearthed some new players that are now regulars and probably first choice options in the 23. Before this year, we probably wouldn't have said that Jaden Hendrikse, Damian Willemse, and Jasper Wiese are in our first choice 15, and now they're in. So you don't usually, it's rare for a team, especially a top team like the Springboks, to develop 3 options for their first choice 15 in a year. So I think that is also a big credit to the Springboks. So
go on, Shaun. Sorry, mate. The other thing on that is also the guy, fans always talk about, it's always the old people, it's always the old people. But if you look at Hendrikse, if you look at Wiese, just those 2 alone, and Arendse actually, you look at the guys that have like forced their way into the matchday 23, not only the matchday 23, the starting 15. So you can't tell me that the Springbok coaches are only dealing with the old people. Sorry, that's just my little mind.
Yeah, and luckily, just going to the next question, good segue. When we talk about the most concerning thing for the Springboks, the oldies one was only the second most popular. The most popular was the clunky attack. That there's probably still a few things to work out with the attack. That got 44%, oldies 23%. 19% is the set piece is not as strong, and 14% the bomb squad and selection. What do you think is the most concerning thing, Shaun?
The most concerning thing for me is the team going to sleep for periods of the game and then hurting our discipline, hurting our defense, hurting our attack, and hurting our momentum. That's the most concerning thing for me, because I think everything is going along better. It's going along nicely, and I think will be significantly better if we play that 80-minute game like we're capable of doing. And that's, for me, something that I would rather fix that straight away than anything else right now, because I think that will filter down the line and fix the rest of the stuff quite a bit.
Okay, so let's move on to what was the most frustrating thing about the Springbok losses. So obviously we lost at Ellis Park to the New Zealanders, and we lost at Adelaide in that game at, what was it, 3 a.m. in the morning?
Oh, beautiful.
So the options, but yeah, we can talk about other things, but the options were bad starts, selection, defense, and not scoring enough. Not scoring enough is leading. I mean, I guess by definition, of course, the reason why we lost is that we didn't score more than the opposition, so fair enough. And then I thought about it after I posted the thread, and I was like, oh, probably could have worded it a little bit better. But yeah, bad starts and selection are tied at 27%, and then defense is at 6%. And I think, yeah, I would actually say defense is a little bit concerning, because I think a lot of teams are finding a lot of mileage from that inside ball. I think we've talked about it for the past few weeks, and I think that's something that we need to just fix as soon as possible, because a team like France especially, and their dynamic attack, they'll find a lot of, and Ireland, don't even get me started, they'll find a lot of purchase if there's a weakness in our defensive structure. And it does seem like it's because they expect a player to work hard in order to go from the opposite side of the ruck into the pillar post position, and that doesn't obviously work every time, as you go through the phases, and it creates a gap that can be exposed, especially with that move that the Australians have formed as well.
Yeah. For me, it was the slow starts, like the inaccuracy of our starts hurt us. I think that hurt us more than anything. On the scoring option, you must bear in mind, I mean, New Zealand scored 24 tries in the tournament. We scored 20. We weren't that far off. Australia scored 17. Argentina scored 15, despite scoring 14 of those against Australia in the first game or second game. So, but I mean, we scored 20 tries in the tournament. So, yeah, I mean, I'll find out what we scored in the past, but it'll take some googling. But yeah, I think our slow starts probably hurt us the most.
Yeah, I think there is something that I think they've fixed now, because we've talked about this, that my theory was that we need to also just start our best players or most informed players, and that's now that Marks and Skitsoff now are part of the starting team. I think that coincided with the Springboks starting the matches better and with a bit more intensity.
Do you know how many tries we scored last year?
I'm not off the top of my head.
12. We scored 8 more tries. New Zealand scored 4 less than the year before.
That's crazy.
But we scored 12 tries in 2021. We scored 20 in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Apart from in all of our games, apart from the Australia game in Adelaide, we scored more than 20 points. So it does make sense that we've scored now quite a few more tries than we did last year. So, yeah, I think we can go through some of these other ones quickly. The regular Springbok, that was the biggest miss. Obviously, the majority of people voted for Lukhanyo over Pollard, Colby, and Bonambi. The most impressive, I'll ask you this as well, Shaun. The most impressive discovery that Jacques Nienaber made during the Rugby Championship, the options were Jasper Wiese, Jaden Hendrikse, Damien Willemse, and then a combination of Kurtley Arendse and Kanan Moody.
I'll go with Jaden Hendrikse. I think the discovery of those other players is one thing. Those players then going forward and forcing their way into starting. It was between Wiese and Hendrikse, but I did expect. I expected Wiese to do as better than what we were used to. So, but I didn't expect him to play this well. But Hendrikse was in a different thing. He hadn't come off a year of dominating in the Premiership. So I think Jaden Hendrikse takes that comfortably.
Yeah. And then the Springbok that didn't quite meet your expectations, Joe Dweba unfortunately runs away with that. 54%. Dwayne Vermeulen, Fonstein, and Faf de Klerk also got some votes. Which Springbok would you like? And next question, I'll talk more about the future. Which Springbok would you like to see play more in the November tour? Shaun, let me throw that to you before I talk about the dirt trackers voted.
What options were they? Sorry,
So
I'm
the options
scrolling.
were Ulrich Loh, Andre Esterhuizen, Evan Roos, or a new fly half.
I think we're going to get a new fly half regardless. So I'm actually going to go and say I want to see Evan Roos play more because we know what we're going to get from Ulrich Loh. It's between Evan and Esterhuizen. But I'm going to go with Evan Roos. If we're going to go Esterhuizen, I'd like to see him dovetail a bit with 10 and 12 in the game. But Evan Roos, I think for me, because I'd like to see how we change our loose trio dynamic. I'd like to see who picks up the different roles and responsibilities. So that will show us the evolution of where the Springbok pack will be and what we are, what ability we have.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about, because the next question will cover this as well, but I wouldn't mind seeing Andre Esterhuizen in the Ireland game, especially, just to see that'll be like almost like an exam in defense. And, you're being tested by Johnny Sexton and Robbie Henshaw and Ringrose, and they're all running around
Creel's
doing
going to be
Sexton
his
loops the
13.
whole time. Probably, I guess, because Lukanya Am is out.
Yeah, so I think that's a bit risky. I really do. But
no,
I see what
this
you're
is
doing.
not.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not to win; it's to actually see how good are you, Andre, and are you like legitimately like we're not losing too much if you replace Damien in a situation where we need you to. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. But yeah, I think obviously the majority of people voted for Evan Roos. A new fly half is second with 28%, and yeah, like you said now, Sean, we hopefully will get one.
That's interesting. I'm very surprised that the dirt trackers haven't gone with a new 10, to be honest.
Yeah, Evan Roos bounces someone. He'll be the most popular person in South Africa for the week, to be fair.
That's the truth, though.
I'm sure he'll be like nominated CEO of Eskom if, just by what he's doing.
That's
the next question is what... Fair enough. Fair enough. Then what should Jacques Nienaber focus on in the November tour? And the options were developing our plan B and our attack. Second is blooding new players. Third is developing options at 10. 4 is no, winning is everything.
Yeah, I tell you, I would like a combination of 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
I think we're going to be blooding new players. We're going to be having a look at some options, but they're all going to come at the detriment of some results. But I really am excited for this November tour. We've got 4 test matches and 2 SAA games, of which 1 test match is going to be the majority of the SAA side. So we've basically got 3 test matches where we could pick our first choice side, and then we've got 3 matches, one of them being a test where we could pick some alternates. So I'm super excited for it, and I think it's going to be good, but we can't expect to go there and win everything. And I'm happy that we don't. I'd really like us to put up a massive showing against Ireland instead of France. I don't know what you prefer. Who would you rather beat, Ireland or France?
So that was one of the questions, and the majority of people voted France, or 55%. Yeah, I actually think beating Ireland would serve us better, because
yes,
I think losing to France would actually maybe help us. And yeah, maybe this is me thinking the French are still, the old-fashioned French that, are a bit up and down. But if we lose to France, they'll likely beat us in the next game, because I think the gap between the two teams isn't big. Like, I think they could probably beat each other on the day. But if we beat France, it's likely that they'll beat us in the next game. So you probably want to bank your loss now, because if we face France in 2023, it'll be at a World Cup knockout game, be it a quarterfinal or the final. So yeah, I think the team that loses now will probably be, I would say, they're my sneaky favorite to win the next game. So yeah, drop the France game. But I was actually just noticing the dates of the different games. And the 2 tour games are all on a Thursday. So that means they're 2 days before a test. So the Munster game is 2 days before the French test, and the Bristol Bears game is 2 days before the Italy test.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting about that is that, number one, the people that are involved in those games will probably not be involved in the test. So we'll probably have to pick a squad of getting closer to 45, 46 players so that we can have 2 separate 23s. And number 2, that means that we'll probably play our first choice team for the Italy game, maybe with a few changes, but the first choice 23 will mostly feature for the Italy game. There might be, and there's a number 3, there might be, though, a space for if someone really performs and blows the socks off the Springboks coaching staff in the Munster game, that maybe they can sneak themselves up for contention for the Italy game. But I think there'll almost be 2 different 23s that are together for this tour.
But I think they will stay. They will stay and train together a lot, which is important. Yeah. I don't think they're going to split them up. I initially thought they might split guys up, send this one side to Italy while the rest of everyone stays to play Bears, and then the following week we play England, I think. So, yeah, I just hope everyone stays together, and I hope all the boys stay fit and we start putting pressure on people. But it's going to be good fun. Oh, I can't wait.
So, yeah, I think we can start rounding up. So the final questions are a rating. So let's give a rating for the Springboks performance Rugby Championship. Won 4 games, only a log point behind the eventual champions, lost 2. But yeah, I think you can look at it 2 ways. Positive is that we're literally almost won the Rugby Championship, and 4 wins is usually a really good year for the Boks in the Rugby Championship. But the negative is we probably could have got at least 5 wins and secured it. And like it's been written and talked about, we probably lost the Rugby Championship at Ellis Park.
Yes, I agree. I think that was the game where we were like, we doubted ourselves and we doubted a few things, and we should really have put it to bed.
And what's your rating out of 10 for the Boks?
I'm gonna go with a 6.5. I think we
fully agree.
We weren't terrible. I think we did a lot of good things. We did a lot of bad things. Like there was a lot of shit with the good. But I don't think it was an absolute disaster. So 6.5, maybe a 7. Like there were some really good moments, but we had some really poor ones. So I'm quite happy with the pass mark and needs work.
Yeah, I think we should have, or we could have and should have probably won this Rugby Championship. And yeah, I think especially with how New Zealand, and they still don't, I mean, we're going to just quickly talk about the other teams quickly, but they still aren't convincing. It's not like we were beaten by like a historical New Zealand team. So yeah, I'm leaning towards a 6, maybe a 5.9. But yeah, just more because I expect more from this team. But they did handle some things really well, especially with the injuries. They developed some new players. The attack is coming along. I think it's grown a lot, even just from the first game to now. The first game, we're doing a lot of like route one pass rugby. And okay, minus the Francois-Steyn fly-half game, in all the other games, we started doing a lot more in our attack, and I think that's a big positive. So yeah, I think 6 out of 10 is a good rating. So I'm with you there. Final question is the best try in the Rugby Championship for the Boks. So the options quickly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go on, Shaun.
No. Go. I'll wait for you.
So the options are Mostert versus Australia. So that was the one where we went a few phases. Kolisi saved the ball from going out and all that sort of stuff, and it went through, I think, 13 hands. You have Marks' second try against Argentina, the little 1-2 with Marks and Mapimpi. You have Lukhanyo Arms try versus New Zealand, where Lukhanyo Arms just went crazy. And we did add an option as well. Dan Mendes, he commented that Kano Moody's try had me feeling all kinds of things. And I think that was probably that was shame. That was probably the sweetest moment for the Springboks. Just
yes, and the most South African try. And the most South African try as well, like from a kick. But Mostert's try for me was amazing. That's mine.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, obviously the other ones were great, but yeah, just I think that shows what the potential of our attack is and where it can go. Before I turn before we just turn to the other teams, just very quickly, just literally 2 minutes, Willie Leroux. So, yeah, I mean, Willie Leroux, like I usually say, Willie Leroux giveth and Willie Leroux taketh away. And I think he giveth a lot. He was doing a lot of good things in the Rugby Championship, and I think our best moments in attack were usually with Leroux on the field. But I think you saw that, like, his defense, and I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but it just seems like he's almost ducking some tackles. And yeah, there's been, I don't know, I obviously one can't say that he was ducking the tackle on Saturday, but him getting stepped like that by Juan Martin Gonzalez is borderline embarrassing for him.
Sure.
And yeah, I think he got subbed straight after that, which probably shows what the Springbok coaching staff's thoughts are. And I think there's a big risk for Leroux that maybe he's now going to be further phased out of the team. So what do you think of Willie Leroux's place in the squad?
I think his place in the squad is not really up for debate. I think he's there and he's there to stay. I think what happened by getting stepped like that, that is a lazy or a fatigue, or he just figured there's no ways this guy's going to take me on the outside, and then he didn't stay light on his feet, and then he committed and just got turned into a lampshade. But it's I'm yet to be proved wrong. But Willie Leroux, when his 10 plays well, Willie Leroux plays well, and I think he overcompensates when he has a poor 10 or a 10 playing badly, should I say. France is not a poor 10, he just played badly. I'm still would like someone to have a look into that and prove me wrong or right. So I think that's something. But I think, defensively, he is straight head on. He's made a couple of really good tackles in the tournament. But a straight one-on-one tackle is probably not his favorite place to be. There was a period I think it was against New Zealand where I can't remember, someone attacked down the wing and they passed. He didn't put shoulder on that play, even though he had passed, which would have effectively taken him out the move. Legally, it would have been done legally. It wouldn't have been completely off. So I think that straight on tackling is not his game. I think he prefers a good tackle at 15, a nice side on where he can chase a guy down, grab him at the ankles. And that's one of the reasons why I think him at 10 is a little bit more risky than anything. You'd have to change things up in defense. And then obviously we lose his ability on attack when he's at 10 because I think he does so well coming in from 15. So no, I don't think he's under pressure. I think the 15 jumpers between him and Damien Willemse, they will rotate it according to what is required at 10 or on the day. So no, Billy's staying. I don't see him not staying because of that performance.
Okay, Willie will stay, and that is the official position of the RugbyBits podcast. So let's just quickly review the other 3 Rugby Championship teams. Let's start with, let's go from the bottom to the top. Argentina. I think positive. This is probably their most successful Rugby Championship campaign with 2 wins. They obviously won away in New Zealand, which was a big game. They came back and won against Australia and absolutely spanked them in that second test in Argentina. They're probably kicking themselves thinking they probably could have snuck a win against South Africa. They had 2 opportunities in both test matches to do that. But I think, I would probably give them a 7 out of 10 for this campaign. What do you think Michael Cheika has changed?
So I think Cheik's, I listened to, he was interviewed, I'll find it. He was on a podcast and what he spoke about was brilliant. But I think Cheik's has done really well. I think he's changed the balance there a little bit. I think he's got a little bit of structure and he's allowed a little bit of the Argentinian flavor to come through. But what also the thing he's done is he publicly played with players for 2 weeks and then sent a whole bunch of guys back to Europe and then went with a separate squad to New Zealand and still got a win. So after that performance against Australia, he sent like 5 players back to their clubs. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of defeats the object. And then he still went and earned a win. So he's slowly or should I say not slowly, but just casually building up quite a decent little squad there. And I think that he's definitely got the idea and the IQ to have that squad and horses for courses at going into the World Cup. And we know the Argentinians flip and love a World Cup. So they 7 out of 10 is great, and I think they can grow.
Okay, very quick fire questions. Player for the series for Argentina?
Oh, Gonzalez. How old is he? How old is he? 20?
I think 11.
Yeah.
I think he's like 22 probably.
And he packed down and he was like, cool, I'm just going to take this test jersey and make it my own. Thanks very much. Never out of place. Never out of place in test rugby.
He's turning 22 this year.
Yes.
I think what's impressive about him mostly is just his motor. Like, he is legitimately everywhere on the field.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll be there on the wing. He'll be chasing down a kick. He'll be making a turnover. Like, he's just been so good. And, most concerning part for the Pumas, I would say their scrum and their tight five. Or mostly their front row. Like, the props, they need some depth at prop because it does get a bit wonky after like basically the first choice props.
Yes, but looking at the World Cup, I think they'll have enough gap between games, less travel, less disruption. I think they'll be okay. But I think that is a little bit of an Achilles heel for them. And I think their discipline, you've got to try and somehow stop the red mist. You've got to keep the anger, but you've got to not have the red mist. And I think if you can get that balance, they'll be dangerous.
Let's move to the Wallabies. They also won only 2 matches in the Rugby Championship. They were third in the log, though. They got 1 more point than the Argentinians. Won against the Springboks in Adelaide and against Argentina in the first Test match Rugby Championship. Had a moment where they looked like they could actually be maybe sneaky favourites to win it after in halfway through because they had 2 home games to go. But things fell apart for them. They got thrashed by the Springboks in Sydney. They almost, we haven't really had a podcast to discuss the Bledisloe Cup 1 and what happened there, but we all know what happened in the drama in the last minute. And then they just got pasted by the All Blacks at Eden Park. Rating out of 10, it's difficult because there's a lot of extenuating circumstance with the injuries. They have, I think I saw a tweet saying they've had 28 injuries to their squad players during the course of the season. Wow. And of course, they've gone like second, third choice options in certain positions. But in saying that, it's just that it's one good performance and one terrible performance, and one good performance, one terrible performance. There's just, I think Australia's issue, and that's my concerning thing for them, is they need to find a way for their bad moments in a game or bad performances to be at least better than like absolute is this an under 12 team? They need to just hold, keep the water and like just not let the whole house flood when you're having a bad moment. Because when they have a bad 20 minutes in the game, they concede 20 points and they have like 3 yellow cards. So there needs to be a bit of a balance between look at this attack, best attack in the world, and they're scoring tries and they're braving it out versus, oh my word, they've just conceded 40 points and half their team is in the sin bin.
Yeah. I think I will probably also rate them about a 6. Just slightly below the Springboks. I think there were more positives out of the Springboks, but the positives the Aussies can take is their massive injury list. Another thing I find out is James O'Connor is actually injured, by the way. So, he was replaced in the squad, but then he went to go play club rugby in the semi-finals and then hurt his Achilles. So wasn't able to come back when they needed him, which was silly. You've got a fly-off crisis. You don't let, no matter what form he is, you don't let him go play club rugby. You keep him. But anyway, I go just below the books, like a 6-ish.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I really, and I think we're on the same page. I think we both are still team ready. We see the development, but they just need some months or games together where they can just build things. And probably the World Cup will be the best opportunity for them. There won't be players lost to the Japanese clubs. Hopefully everyone will be fit. There'll be gaps in between games, and then they can build on momentum and hopefully start stringing performances together. Because it seems like every time you think, okay, the Wallabies are now back, they've established Test rugby, everyone's going to come back and flock back to watch the Wallabies, and rugby is going to be reestablished as the number one sport. They follow that performance up with a stinker. They probably should have capitalized more on some of those wins, because this is, shame. I feel really sorry for the Australian fans. There's just so much frustration and like almost with this team.
Yeah. But it's not the end of the line for him because of the injuries. They've got so much still to do. So there's a hell of a lot more that they can offer, which I think is probably the most exciting part.
Your player for the Wallabies?
Nick White.
Nick White. I'll go Rob Valentini. I think both are valid.
And Pete Samu. I think Pete Samu, for someone that was set up to be a bench flanker, has forced his way into the starting lineup and then performed. Pete Samu and Nick White, for me, I mean, it's no secret, but I rate him highly. I think he's incredible, and regardless of his antics and his chirping, he's a scrum half. He's supposed to chirp. But I think Nick White, they need him. They need him more than most players. But Pete Samu, I'm going to change it. Pete Samu was the player of the tournament for the Australians.
Yeah. It's going to force some tough conversations between Samu and Michael Hooper, but that's another conversation for another day. Let's move to the Rugby Championship winners, the All Blacks. They have won with the worst team in history, the one that we buried a few weeks ago. They were gone. Foster was gone. Everyone was going to get fired. They would stop rugby in New Zealand. They would, just go into bricklaying and plumbing. I don't know. And they've somehow won the Rugby Championship. Shaun, how? What happened?
Well, they were always capable of putting stuff together, and we let them. The South Africans, the Australians, and the Argentinians held up their end of the bargain, to be fair. But Australia could have got a win, another win, and we could have got a win. So the All Blacks, and congratulations to the All Blacks. They've done well. They won all the trophies. They've got the trophy. Was it the Mandela Cup between South Africa and New Zealand? They got the Bledisloe Cup.
Freedom Cup.
Sorry, the Freedom Cup. My bad. The Mandela Cups between South Africa and Australia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they got the Freedom Cup, they got the Bledisloe Cup, and they got the Rugby Championship win. So they won everything that they could possibly win. So, they've done bloody well. And South Africa, we slipped up by not beating them, and then the Wallabies slipped up, and that changes everything. That if they lose the Bledisloe Cup and we win the Rugby Championship, Foster's gone. I don't care how much NZRU said they were keeping him until the end of the World Cup. But yeah, they did well. They fought back through adversity. They made changes. They made mistakes. They had glimpses of good games. They brought things back. I was super impressed with it. That's the whole thing about being part of a team. When the chips are down, you band together.
Yeah, and big credit to Foster and Joe Schmidt and the team for that. Like, they really were able to band together. I thought that maybe, I thought that especially after the Argentinian loss, that there would be maybe a bit of confidence shaken, and maybe they would still drop another game. But they still showed that they still have that instinct that all the best New Zealand teams have in that fifth game against Australia, where they were able to execute and score a match-winning try. And that's been a feature of the New Zealand teams of the 2010s, that they could, if you give them an opportunity to win a game at the death, they'll take it with both hands. So that's, I think, a big positive, that they're still able to do that, even if they're not playing their best rugby. I think, I think the turnaround has just been that they've got a bit more. There seems to be a bit more of a game plan, and they just try as hard as possible to work on that game plan. And Squid Rugby, as obviously we all know about Squid Rugby, his video on the Bledisloe Cup 1 game is great, because it also shows that New Zealand, almost like they focus on one thing that the opponents don't do well, and they focus on that as the base of their game plan for the weekend. And maybe just simplifying things and bringing someone like Schmidt there as a tactician, that's probably helped them a lot. Player of the tournament for the All Blacks?
I know on the breakdown they picked Takiaho, but for me, it's Jordie Barrett.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good pick there.
Yeah, I think finally we get to see him at 12. So many people, Jared is one of them, has been banging on about him playing at 12. But he's a genuine contender to be their first choice 12 or a realistic option at 12, and that will allow you to have Moanga, Geordie, and Bowden on the field at the same time. And Bowden's playing bloody well at 15, so you're really not losing anything. But I think Geordie's been really solid. He's been really impressive. And I think between him and Takiaho, they were most certainly the players of the tournament for the All Blacks.
Yeah, I'll go with Odi Sevilla, just because he hasn't been mentioned yet. Yeah, I think he's I think I tweeted last week that he's not I don't think he's the best eighth man in the world, but I do think he's the best forward in the world, which is a bit confusing. But just as like his general skills are just absolutely brilliant, and he wills the team to a win sometimes, and he's just able to, with his leg drive, just get so many meters after contact. We all know about his skills and what he brings to the field. But I think the fact that he's still, his head wasn't one of the heads that dropped when New Zealand was playing badly. He was still the one person and one of the few players on the field that seemed to be performing. And when New Zealand's playing well, he's obviously still one of the people that are ahead of the pack as well. So I think that's a big positive for him. A shout out, just to anger you, a shout out to Rico Ioane. I think he's had a really good rugby championship.
He's a flat track bully, man.
So we now flat track teams.
No, he's a flat track bully. He performs when they win by plenty, and that's just purely because he's got so much pace. Now, I started supporting him a little bit, and then I properly had a look at some games, and I'm like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, look, I think you're right though. Like a lot of what he does is covered by his pace. So if if his positioning is bad, he can always fix it with pace.
Yeah. I just think if he was a better 13, I think the All Blacks would have probably scored another 5-6 tries.
Yeah, I think they got maybe even stopped 2 or 3 as well. And then the thing that they need to, you're concerned for them?
I think they're starting to, through this chaos, is they're now getting to a point where they are struggling to play certain players. So everyone Rico didn't have a bad tournament. I still don't think, I've spoken about it, so I'm not going to get onto it again. But he's been the most consistent, so he stays. And then they're trying to figure out what's happening at 12, but they can put Geordie there. 10 is pretty much sewn up, but where do you put Bowden? So Bowden starts at 15. Does Geordie play on the wing? What's happening to Jordan? There's a few things that are up in the air. Their loose trio is also a little bit weird. This weekend, I know they won and they won comfortably, but Akira Ioane, I don't think I heard his name until the second half. It's so weird that they do so well and one of their flankers doesn't perform. So very interesting. So they're in a tough space, but I think they really need to just go down to the basics, be really simple. Everything else is natural to them. It's in their DNA. It's how they've played rugby forever. So if they can just sort out the basics, they'll do fine. And hats off to the All Black pack for performing and getting such a big win without Sam Cane and what seemed like an anonymous Akira Ioane. I don't mean that in a bad way. He was obviously doing work, but he just wasn't his usual stuff, and his numbers weren't fantastic. So it was obviously there was a plan.
Yeah, I think I fully agree with you. I think basically the biggest problem is the whole trying to fit all the stars into the team issue that they've had for the past 2 years as well.
But you do that when you're under pressure, You're like, I have to play this guy. Well, let's play him out of position because I have to play him. So when you're under pressure, you start compromising a few things.
And the problem is that all these rolls of the dice have worked in some ways, and now you're almost married to them. So now you're married to Geordie at 12, and I'm not saying he's not going to be a great 12, but you're compromising on things at 15 with Bowden Barrett. He's not as good defensively. With Will Jordan, he's not as good defensively as well. He doesn't have the boot that Geordie has. You compromise with your 13 with Rico. You compromise to an extent with your props. I mean, Ethan de Groot, I think, had a really good tournament, but he's just not as disciplined and as like just a grafter like someone like maybe, if Joe Moody can turn back the clock, or Ofatunga Fasi can come back. So now you've got these solutions that you're stuck to because they're the players that perform. That it seems like Ian Foster's just been really fortunate in some ways, because a lot of his rolls of the dice and having to pick players because people were injured, they all worked out for him during the Rugby Championship. And, I think someone like Shannon Frizzell or Tyrell Lomax, Samasani Takiaho, okay, I think that was pretty obvious. But those things have all worked out for him. And now when the other injured players come back and, you have to now pick players and pick teams, I'm hoping he does still pick the players that make sense together, rather than just picking players because, you were good or you're a star, so we'll just have to fit you in. So I think that'll be the big challenge for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that is the Rugby Championship, and we will just finish up very quickly with just looking at the RC, because we haven't really talked about it the past few weeks. So I think let's just do it on some quick fire talking points. Shaun, we've had basically 2 weeks for most teams. The Sharks and Stormers only played their first games this weekend. Who's the most impressive team from the South African teams in the RC so far?
I probably from the South African, the Lions, definitely the Lions. They snuck a win in Swansea this week. They've been pretty impressive. The Bulls were a little bit shaky. The Stormers have only played one game. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Sharks were shaky in their first game. So the Lions, most certainly the informed South African side, ironically.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. And that's a really good Ospreys team they beat. You have Adam Beard, Alan Wynne-Jones, and George North in that team. So it's Justin Tipperick also made his comeback. So you're not playing with mugs at all. And they beat them away from home. And I think that's a bit scary for the rest of the URC. If the Lions are able to beat one of the better Welsh teams, like that's not really good for the rest of them. I'm going to go for the Stormers, though, even though they've played one game. I think their performance against Connacht was just brilliant. And some of I didn't watch the full game yet, but just the attack and the tries that they scored were just absolutely amazing. They definitely haven't got a second-year syndrome at all on that basis. And yeah, I think it'll be important for the Stormers to pick up wins now, because they will... Yeah, they obviously don't have their Springboks, and they've obviously lost more players than they would have last year. So this iteration of the Stormers with someone like Ali Vermaak getting big minutes, or Adams van Ryn, or Dan du Plessis, those players need to just keep things going and try to win as many games as possible, so that the Stormers can be up there near the top of the log in the business end of the tournament. So yeah, good win from them. And then with the rest of the URC, what has been a more surprising development? Has it been A, Glasgow beating Cardiff 52 points to 14, or B, Munster just looking rubbish the last 2 weeks?
So yeah, my A and B were actually Zebre and Munster.
Yeah, I actually, as soon as I stopped, I was like, I should have added Zebre as C.
Yeah. Okay, let's add them as C. I think those three are good, but I think the big thing about B and C with Munster and Zebre is the fact that Munster and Zebre have both, it's been a 2-week thing. So Zebre played well for 2 weeks in a row against big sides, and Munster have lost 2 weeks in a row, which I never saw coming. I actually I watched the game, and the Munster game, and I was super surprised. They had opportunity in the start of the second half. They were 15-0 down, managed to crawl back 14-15 at halftime, and just didn't kick on in the second half, and just allowed Dragons to be in it. Massive win for Dragons. First home win since 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So it's huge. huge for them. They're having issues with their director of rugby at the moment, Dean Ryan. He wasn't at the game. There's all sorts of shit going on.
Did you see that interview he had after the first game?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't, but I was told about it, and he basically just said these oaks are cuck. So
yeah,
yeah,
pretty much.
And then when they asked about him on Saturday at the halftime or after the game, and they were like, "We're not willing to comment on it." So there's some serious shit going on. Anyway, needless to say, it's unlikely we'll see Dean Ryan back for the Dragons. But yeah, so the players clearly said we can do it. So a massive result for them. But we're in for a great. There's been some good results in this tournament so far. We're in for some spicy weeks ahead.
Mm. Yeah, I think Munster, yeah, they have a lot of problems, but yeah, you can follow at 3 Red Kings. Obviously, he's probably the biggest Munster fan on Twitter. Some of it is new game plan. They're trying to bed it in, and the players not understanding. But some of it is just, yeah, like basics are just falling apart, and they'll need to fix that very quickly because on this path they're not going to qualify for the Champions Cup, and I think for Munster that should be the goal for the year, is just get to the top 8. Like anything else is a bonus, and it's not looking good at the moment. Zebre, good, yeah. I mean, you play Leinster and the Sharks, and you get you get a losing bonus point in both. So that's great work from them. Two from the Sharks game, yes, yeah, because they scored more than 4 tries. So yeah, I think that's really good work for them, and hopefully that means more competition in this URC, because I mean if Zebre is competing, if the Dragons have got a win, if Benetton can also, because they did pretty well against Glasgow as well in the first week, we have a competition on our hands now. My last question, URC related, is in terms of, we're taking out the South African teams, in terms of the big Irish teams, who's the bigger threat? Is it still Leinster, or is Ulster maybe a bigger threat than Leinster?
Oh, I tell you, you can't not vote. You can't not say Leinster just because they're Leinster. Like, we all know what they can produce, but we've also seen them. They've got a point to prove this season after last season.
Yeah.
So very interesting. But I tell you one thing. The answer will be the answer to your question will be sorted out this weekend when Ulster and Leinster play each other. But yes. I tell you, Ulster very, very quietly going about their business and doing it bloody well at the moment. And they're looking to put their hand up, because I think everyone's focused on Munster and obviously Leinster. And Ulster have gone, well, hang on, we're still here. So we'll just show you with a few results and we'll keep talking for the pitch.
Yeah, my hot take is I think Ulster's going to win the Rugby Championship, the URC this season.
Really?
I really like them for the URC. I think they were quite unlucky last year. Of course, we know that they lost literally at the last second in the semi-final. They've got a really good squad. The Champions Cup doesn't mean that. I mean, obviously they'd like to win it, but it's not like a big thing. It's not like a big focus if they get knocked out in the last 16 or last 8. So they'll probably fall out of that early. So I can see that if they fall out of that in February, March, let's say in March, April, then they can sort of build a run like Stormers did in a sense, and just win games and just be consistent. And Leinster and the Stormers maybe are in the later stages of the Champions Cup, and then also can be the ones that benefit from it. I love Nick Timoney. I think he's obviously just such a fantastic player. Stuart McCloskey has had the most brilliant start. I think every clip I've seen of the URC the last 2 weeks has been of him. And yeah, I think especially if Bandiaki's trying to injure players in rucks like he did to Sinatla, like McCloskey could be a player that maybe becomes part of the Irish reckoning very soon. So yeah, I am a big John Cooney fan. I'm a big Billy Burns fan. I think there's enough there. Don't have the depth of Leinster, of course, but I think that the circumstance will fall in the right place for them.
Not even Marties have the depth of Leinster, and they're the biggest rugby club in the world. So, let's be honest here. But a great shout on Cooney. He's also very quietly just saying, listen, I'm still very much in the running for an Irish jersey. I thought that he missed out a few recalls to the Irish setup when he was on form. So maybe he's doing it at the right time now. Murray is not as, he did have a dip, but he seems okay. So I think Ireland are pretty handy. Obviously, they've got Gibson Park as well. So their three scrum halves are very handy if they go with Cooney, Gibson, if they add Cooney to the mix. So, so we'll see what goes on there, but I wouldn't mind him. But he scored 20 points this weekend and made 2 try assists or 3 try assists. So that's a bloody good haul, eh?
Crazy game. Then just two quick things about the Premiership and the top 14. Premiership quickfire question is craziest result of the weekend. So you've got all of these games have just been crazy high scoring. You've got Wasp beating Bath 39 points to 31. You've got Bristol beating London Irish to 40 points to 36. Leicester Tigers, who were like behind in the fourth quarter, like 17-21 behind, they won against Northampton 41 points to 21. Saracens also came back in the last minute and won with a final kick from Owen Farrell, 41 points to 39. Worcester, who have now been kicked out of the Premiership because they're in administration, won 39 points to 5. And then we were talking about it before the podcast, but Exeter winning in the last minute against Harlequins, 43 points to 42. And I saw a stat that said this is the first time since, I think, 10 years ago in the early 2010s where a team that was 25 points behind then overturned that deficit only to lose that match.
Yeah.
And that's what Harlequins did.
I mean, Exeter were 31-7 up at halftime. Like, how many times I've looked at Harlequins and gone, yes, that's way too, that hill's way too high to climb. Sorry, man, that's just poor. Then, I mean, like I said, I was watching the Dragons game, and then I was keeping an eye on the score, and Quins go, and then they take the lead, and I'm like, well, there's no ways back. Like, that's it. That's the game. You don't beat Quins when they come back and then go ahead. They've got you. You're in the depth of in the dungeon you've got. And then to see the results at the end, and it's very, I wouldn't say it's very unlike Exeter, but Exeter are not like that. And for them to go and win it like that is flipping incredible. That has to be the game of the weekend. It has to be that one or Saracens for me. But
big wins, and big wins for Wasps and Worcester were going through obviously some big financial challenges.
So Worcester, let's just be said, the Worcester lads, and it's so shit, but I mean that was their last game at Six Ways. It was their last game at home, and they went and beat Newcastle 39-5. Like that's a proper result. And the try that Newcastle scored was in the first half, so they kept them scoreless in the second half. That's Oh, well.
Yeah, and all the best to everyone that works there. Like obviously a lot of jobs are lost in a situation like that. So really all the best to them, and hopefully they can all land back on their feet. It's not just the rugby team, it's like administrative staff, it's grounds people. Apparently the groundsmen and their families stay at Six Ways.
No.
So they literally lose their place. Yeah. So it's man, it's really, 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 really sad. This sort of situations, and like this is obviously the other side of professionalizing rugby, that these situations happen. But hopefully all of them can land back on their feet, and the administration process can find some solutions and get Worcester back into rugby somehow. And Wasps, all the best for them as well, because they look like they're staring down the barrel as well. So big issues in English rugby at the moment. Then finally the top 14. There's 3 teams at the top, and probably the 3 best teams in the top 14. So who's your pick between Toulouse, Montpellier, and La Rochelle? At least going forward.
Yeah, I tell you, Toulouse probably for me, because they stuttered a little bit last year. I think Toulouse for me probably the runners at the moment, but Montpellier very quietly going about their business though.
I think they've obviously they made a big acquisition in Flouth with Carbonell, right? And now playing Garbisi at 12, which I think is a great idea, because there's a lot of like Farrell and Pollard and Paulo Galbisi's game. Yeah, I mean they've got all the ingredients to make a big run. They still have Paul Willemse to welcome back into that team as well. Zach Mercer just won player of the top 14. So yeah, all things are going well for them. So I can't. Yeah, I can see them competing.
Massive win for Bayonne this weekend as well. Bayonne beating Bordeaux. That's also huge. I mean, Bayonne have, I think that's their second win already this season.
Yeah,
so.
Bordeaux is in a bit of a crisis, eh? Things are not going well there.
Yes. And you know, it's so weird that we said each time, but Cust are, I mean, they're lying 8th at the moment, but they're always they're always in the mix, eh?
They'll be top 6.
Yeah, they always do a late. I mean, the twice when they won the league, or the one time I know for a fact when they won the league, they managed to just creep into the knockout places on the final day, and then went on to go and win the whole tournament in the knockout stages. So you know they're the dogs you don't ever want to play. So, but they're in the mix, man. They're in the mix.
I'm literally booking their place in the top 6. Like, you just know that Gus will find a way in there. They'll bloody someone's nose and probably get into the semifinals. Like, that's just the way that they go about things, like you've said. Shaun, lastly, I have a quick mini, I don't think we've done this in a while, but a quick rugby shout out. And this is more just pointing people to something, which is an article written by Alan Dymock. I hope I'm saying your name right. He's a writer for Rugby World, and he wrote about the Stormers and just their rise from being being themselves in administration, and the SA Rugby taking them over at the start of the season, to winning the URC and the circumstances around that. And great insight from like John Dobson. He talks about the Stormers not being able to afford food, being on tour, so they had to buy McDonald's for like 3 or 4 nights in a row in order to get things through. They could only tour with 23 players, so then if someone was sick on Friday, they weren't able to play, so they had 22 players in the squad. So an insane circumstance for a team that literally then wins the URC in the same year, so I think that's a great story to look out for. So Alan Dymock, I'll definitely retweet it on the RugbyBits platform as well.
That's amazing. I look forward to reading that. My shout out goes to Sibela Sinatlo. I found out today, but that he's going to be out for a few months, which
so unfortunate.
Sucks, because how he played last year, his transition into 15s has been a tough one. I think it's been a little bit up and down. He managed to grasp it last year in a way that was like we were all seeing, and played really well. And I was so super pumped to watch him this year. I definitely think that he was in with a shot to get a Springbok call up somewhere along the line, especially with November and next year ahead of the World Cup. And I was just, really bummed that he's out. So I hope wishing him a super fast and 100% recovery. And my other one is to all the women's sides which are making their way to New Zealand for the World Cup, which starts on the 8th of October. So the Women's World Cup. Our South African side, the highest we've ever been ranked. We've come off a couple of great results. Our squad's looking good. I am super excited. Our first game's at like 3:00 in the morning, but after the Rugby Championship, we were at least trained at getting up early in the morning. So getting up to watch the women play in their first game in the World Cup. So we'll definitely chat about them next week. But I know that they're making their way over and everyone's there, all going to be there soon. And I'm super pumped. So my shout out goes to them.
Yeah, very exciting rugby to come up with the Women's World Cup starting at the 8th of October, like you said. Yeah, and all the teams are some nice content as well. The teams like in New Zealand and getting themselves ready. So there'll be a festival of rugby to look forward to as well. But yeah, that is the end of an epic episode of the RugbyBits podcast. Thank you so much. I'm sure you can divide into quarters even, but yeah, you can definitely have this big meal and it'll sustain you for the next few days. Shaun, thanks so much for joining. Unfortunately, your load shedding schedule was the one that enabled you to join it this time. But yeah, to our dirt trackers, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Please go to the RugbyBits page and follow us. Please go to bet.co.za, like them, start an account with them if sports betting is your thing. And we will see you in the next podcast.
Cheers, guys.